God, the priest was actually, in serving God, worshiping God. When you worship him, it happens when you serve him. Worship was required in the presence of God. But what fascinates me about God's attention to the details concerning what was suitable for him as it pertained to the responsibilities of the priest was not only what the priest did, but what he wore while working. The attire of the priest mattered to God. This discourse is not about what the priest did. It's about what he wore. In fact, the 28th chapter of this book, Exodus, is committed to disclosing the intricacies of what God required as the garment for the priest. Time won't allow me to unpack it. However, the detail I do want to share with you is found towards the end of the chapter, beginning in verse 31. God says to Moses that the priest is to make an ephod, which is comparable to the cassock I have on now, except without buttons. And not only is he to wear this garment in the house of God while working, which is why a cassock is usually, when it comes to choir vestures for pastors, bishops, and leaders, is the base garment that a preacher or one who serves in ministry wears, because it is a working garment. It is not for fashion. It is a working garment. This is why you see Catholic priests wear these type of robes. These are actually intended historically to represent the linen ephod that the priest wore in the tabernacle. They are working garments. If police has a uniform, if those that are in the fireplace, the fire marshals, if those in the military, in the Air Force have to have uniforms, and doctors and medical professions, if the courtroom requires, if education, college professors, if these various spaces of influence require those who are employed to have a uniform, you don't think God has order in his house? Where do you think they got their principles from? They got it from the book. There was a certain garment that the priest had to wear while serving in the tabernacle. An ephod. Not only an ephod, ladies and gentlemen, but God says make it all blue. When you study the color blue in scriptures, it is indicative of deity, divinity, divine knowledge, and heaven. Is all seen in the color blue when you study scriptures. The irony in this is that literally the priest would be required to wear the color that prophesied what God was manifesting in earth. Because by his presence, inhabiting mankind's dwelling place, he was literally bringing heaven to earth. Wear the color to match what's happening in the atmosphere. Wear all blue because I'm bringing heaven to earth. I want you to be dressed in what's happening. Why then, some of you, just a sidebar, why then you have black on, Pastor? I'm glad you asked. Black, ladies and gentlemen, is a base color that represents servanthood. It means I am at the least of these. Black represents not sin in this context. Black represents I am empty, so I need him to fill me, because what I do, I can't do without him. Black says I am not trying to take the spotlight. It's not about being in the mic. It's not about if you can preach, hoop, holler, sing. It's not about having people cheer you on and getting with you. No, it's about when you stand to minister, can we see less of you and more of God? That's why the color black is often worn in this type of garment. But it's all blue. He says, I want you to be dressed in the color of heaven. Now, why am I explaining this? Because every detail mattered. Not just for how the tabernacle was built, but for what took place inside by way of the priest. Even the details of the priest's garment mattered to God. But one of the details, ladies and gentlemen, as I get ready to stop, one of the details that is important to pay attention to is not so obvious in visibility, but it's impactful audibly. One of the details of the garment, if you were to see it, it may not, unless you're paying close attention, it may not stand out. It may not be as obvious. But what does create its presence is the sound that it makes. The text says that at the hem of the garment were pomegranates and bells that were arranged in a way that there was beside each pomegranate a bell, and beside each bell was a pomegranate. And the significance of this is very simple. When Aaron the priest went into ministry within the tabernacle, his sound was to be heard for when he entered the holy place and for when he exited, not just entered, but when he exited the holy place. And as long as the sound, as long as the sound, as long as the sound continued, he didn't die. Now, out of all of the responsibilities that the priest had, the text said there was one particular responsibility that had to be fulfilled, which was a matter of life and death, and that was to make sure there was a sound in the house. His ministry and his service was to provide a sound. Why? Because when the priest went in to minister before the Lord, when the priest went in to serve the Lord, his ministry and his service was worship. So why did there have to be a sound? Because worship has a sound. So the sound that the priest created was actually a sound of worship. It was a sound of worship. How was the sound produced? It was produced by movement. Everywhere the priest went, it created vibration. As the priest moved, it created oscillation. Energy was provoked to move. It could not be stagnant. The energy had to be active. And as the energy moved, as the priest moved, everything he did created a sound of worship. Why is this significant, ladies and gentlemen? It is significant because we who have gathered in this place to celebrate the life of Wanda Campbell need revelation of this moment. We're not just celebrating the life of one who ministered beautifully with her voice. We're actually celebrating the life of a priest who understood the importance of sustaining a specific sound. Don't miss it. Wanda was a worshiper. Wanda believed in the excellence of worship. And what Wanda emphasized was the importance of having the right sound. When she taught music and explained how to achieve a certain sound, she directed our attention towards how we breathe. Because there's got to be life involved. There's got to be breath involved. Why? Because it's through the process of proper breathing the right sound can be produced. The beauty in this, though, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to miss this. The beauty in this is if we really consider in this moment what Wanda was teaching us then, it becomes apparent now that she wasn't just giving us techniques for music, but what she was sharing with us is a spiritual principle. What she was really teaching us is that with the breath we've been given, which is life from God, is maximized to its fullest potential to glorify God, then that's when the sound of worship is produced. So what is my charge from God today? My charge to this family, to this church family, and to the entire community of family and friends and loved ones who embrace this worshiper named Wanda is to put in motion the principle her life taught us, and that is to produce the sound of worship. Somebody for the next few moments, let the sound of worship be heard in the house. I said, release the sound of worship. Her life created the sound. Her life produced the sound. And she taught us how to
responsibility in producing the sound while we remain, though she has translated from earth to glory. Our responsibility then becomes not just to produce it, we got to sustain it. What does sustain mean? It is a musical term which means to make steady the sound at its maximum intensity. So if it takes a certain level, a certain intensity, a certain frequency, in order for sound to be created, don't lose the pace, the momentum, the maximum energy that has to be used to produce the sound. Once you get the sound, sustain it. Keep the same pace. Keep the same rhythm. Keep the same energy. Keep the same momentum. It would be a shame for us to have lived in the same lifetime as this worshiper and lose what she taught us. We got the sound, now sustain it. And here's the beautiful thing that the Lord wants us to know. Wanda may have closed her eyes on this side, but because she sustained the sound, her life will continue. Why? Because God said to Moses, as long as the sound continues, he didn't say how it continues. You see, breath we needed to live on this side. But when you've been born again by water and spirit, you now receive another type of life that is not confined to time. It's not confined to space. It's eternal in the heavens. And though she may have closed her eyes on this side, the breath of God that gave her eternal life has allowed her to maintain the sound. And because the sound is continuing, Wanda may be asleep now, but when the trump of God, another sound is heard, that sound it won't collide with her sound. And she has to get up off the ground. She has to be ready because the sound has been sustained. I need everybody in the room that understands the sound of worship. Release the sound right now with everything you got. Come on. I said release the sound. I said release the sound. Open your mouth. Come on, sustain it. Sustain it. Keep it consistent.